community leader of the Generate community. Obviously, our whole goal here is to get any hard charging salesperson, fully commissioned employee, business owner, entrepreneur into the group to talk about, hey, how do we lead generate and refill our pipeline coming out of this shelter in place? How do we make sure we have a business, a pipeline, and an economy to return to? And really, I couldn't think of anybody better to help have these kind of conversations about resetting, restarting, honoring our family more than Jon Vroman. And I'll give the 60-second Reader's Digest on Jon Vroman. I met Jon back when he was only one of the highest rated public speakers and keynote deliverer people on college campuses in the entire world. He grew.
That was the official title.
That was the official title. Title rolls right off the tongue. Then he started a charity called the Front Row Foundation, which we've given quite a bit to because we really believe in the mission of giving terminally ill children and adults a front row experience of their life. And then, Jon, through kind of his own personal exploration, realized he wanted to lead a tribe of top producing kind of alpha male dads who are out there growing businesses and maybe not completely honoring their role as a husband, as a father. And I can tell you, I definitely don't have it all figured out, but I've belonged to Jon Vroman's Front Row Dads group for a long time now, and it has absolutely made me a better husband, a better father, and then in turn, a better business person. So Jon, first of all, I just want to thank you for being on. And what did I miss in my rambling introduction of who Jon Vroman is?
That was perfect. Yeah, that was, no, man, it was ideal. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. Oh, there was the thing about how good I am in the bedroom. That's something my wife talks about a lot, but we're probably not getting into that today, are we?
No. That's a totally different conversation for a different Facebook group. But yeah, I mean, it's important through all of this, like your real mission now is to be an awesome husband and an awesome father. And I think that's what we want to talk about, right? Because right before we started the call live, you and I were just talking about how, even though there's been a lot of tragedy and a lot of strife for many families and communities due to COVID-19, you and I kind of like the fact that this has forced us to make a hard reset on our life and make some hard decisions. So why don't we talk about first maybe some of the decisions that have come for you and the other fathers that you lead out of like, hey, you can't be hard charging 24/7 at work because work doesn't exist. You got to be at home. So tell us what's going on there.
Yeah. And let's see if we can give people the big value in the first 3 to 4 minutes. That's always my favorite type of show when I listen and just get right to it. I think this whole thing has been a big pattern interrupt. I think this has been the best pattern interrupt possible for us. And now, again, I think you said it. It's like, yes, if we acknowledge the fact that there's great tragedy, and my heart goes out to anybody that's been impacted in a massive way, personally, professionally, they've lost loved ones. With respect to all that, I also know that this has forced our family and forced my business to get really clear. One of our keywords as a family has been definition, that this has offered a place to create new definitions. As an example, we used to all outsource education, and it was really easy to wake up and send our kids off to school and then be able to just go focus on business. But now we need to redefine our role in our children's lives as educators, or more of more of an active participant than we might have previously, the week before this all went down, had been thinking about. Defining our business models, redefining our business models. This idea of definition has been huge. So as an example of places where we've made pivots and what's changed is, and this speaks directly to lead generation, in Front Row Dads, we used to only open up for membership a couple times a year. And directly as a result of all that's happened, we started a twice a month, every other week conversation that we call Candid Conversations. So we open it up to everybody and anybody, members or non-members can join in. It's free to the public. And we have a candid conversation on some relevant, recent topic that is very real to the dads that are part of our group. And these aren't just dads. These are dads with businesses that are constantly struggling with where do they give their time and attention. So changing the conversation. I've seen this in almost every group possible, how we're having the dialogues, how we're sparking conversation. In our monthly training calls within our group, we changed how they were unfolding. And thanks to our mutual friend, John Berghoff, and the work that he does at the Exchange Group, thinking about how to get guys into smaller, more intimate breakout rooms on calls, or how to facilitate virtual meetings. All this refinement has been so powerful for us. It's forced us to adopt new models. And in the end, we're better for it. I mean, in the end, I think one of the best questions is, what are we going to keep coming out of this, and what are we never going to go back to? And I had a conversation with a guy this morning that they took their whole business virtual, and their profits are up 380%. So it's an incredible, it's an incredible space to explore and redefine. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think you bring up something really interesting, which is like we get to define those patterns, right? And I'm just wondering, I'm terrified of some of the patterns that I got out of, and I'm terrified about some of the patterns that I might go back to. And so one of the patterns I'm frustrated that I got out of is the only way I can seem to keep myself physically fit is if I'm doing combat sports with like other men. I grew up wrestling in high school. I love boxing. I love jujitsu. And so that's my catalyst, right? And then that pattern, it's like if I'm coming back from a boxing practice, well, then I don't stop at Taco Bell. I get a salad. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that pattern. But I got to tell you, man, right now, I feel like father of the year because every night at 4:30, 5:30, maybe 6 at the latest, I take off my clothes, I get on my swim trunks, I jump in the pool with the kids. I spend like an hour to 2 hours of quality time with them. Then we come in, we've been having a healthier dinner that my wife's been cooking. Maybe we get some popcorn and watch like a half-hour Spider-Man cartoon, read the kids a book, go to sleep. I feel like father of the year. Whereas when I'm driving to an office, it's like, there's always an excuse to stay late or go to a happy hour or have a cigar with a, business referral partner. So have you been talking at all in the Front Row Dads group? Well, I know you have, because I've been on some of the calls. Have you been talking about how to make sure we honor those patterns that are coming out of this last 60 days that we're happy about and just don't fall into old traps and old tropes?
Yeah, a lot of it is just being aware. Like you said, it's not, we can actually stumble upon a new positive habit. We can ride that wave because, as one of our Front Row Dads says, domains force focus, right? So let me say that again. Domains force focus. If you create a domain, it forces our focus to be in a particular way. If you're not allowed to go out, and you're at home, it forces a focus that you would not otherwise have, which is actually the thing that I'm so grateful for. And I'm like, I literally look back at the last 8 weeks and I'm like, I love the fact that we haven't been able to go anywhere, or the places that we have gone. Like, we've gone camping twice. We never were going camping because it was up against going to Hawaii or going to whatever. And I'm like, now we learn more about our area, like, and the Austin and the outer limits of it. Our domain and our constriction and our constraint has forced a focus that I think if we become aware of it, then we have a choice. And we always have a choice. We have a choice of what we do. I mean, I was a keynote speaker for a number of years, traveled 150 days out of the year, standing on stages, standing ovations and hotels and dinners and lots of friends and lots of variety. There's something very alluring about that. But getting out of that business to get home with my family, and no judgment to anybody, by the way, that's a keynote speaker or travels a lot. But for me, it was a choice. It was getting out of that business and creating something new where I could be home more, because that's not easy. Like, being at home is not easy. Being a part of your kid's education is not easy. When your 5-year-old wants to play armies for the 1,000th time, the same battle that you will never win as a dad because his sniper is able to kill your entire army without you, right? Like and being engaged about that, being excited about that is hard work as a dad. That's hard work. Or my kids wanting to play Tickle Monster for the 700th time, where all I do is just tackle them on the bed and tickle them, and they want to do it all the time. That's tough as a dad sometimes, right? Because like, I would rather them be, willing to go on an aggressive mountain biking ride through some really difficult trails that's pushing my limits, but instead I'm pushing my limits in a different way. And so I think if we hold the awareness of that, Scott, and make choices, this is definitions, but it's also decisions, definitions and decisions that we have to consciously make in our lives. And that's a big thing as a planet too. I mean, you hear about the fact that, the smog clearing up in a city where they can see the skyline they haven't seen in 3 decades. And we see that now. And now that we know, and we have this visual impact of what we're doing to the planet. Like, we've never had that visual impact. Like, holy shit, like we are decimating the planet with our actions. And now we can see it within a few week period of time, the healing that happens in a planet when we all just stop doing what we're doing and we breathe. That planetary pause, that planetary pattern interrupt. If we pay attention to this, for our businesses, for the planet, for our families, we're all going to come out of this better, because when a pattern interrupt occurs, you now have choice. And choice is where our bad habits that we're just running our days, we're keeping us from consciously deciding on the next thing. And now we have that choice. So some are going to fall back and others won't, but ultimately, awareness and choice, that's what's going to keep us in the right spot.
Man, I love everything that you said, and we could pivot 7, 8 different directions. But since you went there, I'm going to go there with you. When we met, you were doing the keynote circuit and 150 days a year of travel and $500 steak dinners and drinks till midnight, and then back up, back to your family. And I remember you telling me about how this conversation impacted you dramatically, and then you had the same conversation with me. And I'm sure you'll remember it. If you don't, whatever, I remember it. You said, at some point I just had to make a decision on, whether or not this is serving me. And you and I have talked about that with drinking, with travel, with business, with how we're showing up for our family, for the other stuff that, the side projects we have, like constantly thinking about this idea of, does this serve me? And so I think this pause and this reset is forcing a lot of people to think like, well, was driving 45 minutes into the office every day, was that serving me? Is my career even serving me? Do I want to do the Jon Vroman thing and give up my very lucrative speaking career to go build this whole new business, running a dad's group that I don't even know if it's going to make me money. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage. So if there's somebody out there right now who's struggling with like, hey, I don't know if my job or this aspect of my career or this relationship or this business or whatever is really serving me, how can people kind of think through that? Because when you and I had that conversation, it was really impactful.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to that. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's like, how do you be healthy? And it's like, it's 1,000 things, right? It's getting your feet in the grass outside and getting exposed to the sun. It's eating healthy foods and a variety of them. It's so many things that can tie into how somebody chooses what to do with their time and their life. But I think that what the common thread here about everything is it has to begin with a pause, right? It has to begin with a moment of a pattern interrupt. You have to get away. You have to separate yourself. You have to get out of whatever routine you're in. That is meditation. That is what people experience when they go for a walk or a run in nature. That's why we have breakthroughs in the shower, somebody would say, because you're literally in a space where you're confined, and that confinement, that disconnection allows us to figure out what we want. I'll tell you, I had a breakthrough recently, Scott, and I wrote about this, which was my wife's 40th birthday was this week. This is really real time. This is in the last 7 days. And we were at my buddy's lake house celebrating. And my wife was having the best time. She's in the hot tub and she is going underwater and blowing bubbles, right? And like just having the best time blowing bubbles in the hot tub. And this smile and this light. And I was watching her and smiling. And then it hit me. I was like, I know why I love my wife so much. And this, by the way, all ties to business and leads and choosing what we want to do, is that I go, why do I love my wife so much? Why does this light me up? Why was she the right choice? And why is she still the right choice? And that is because I get to see the world through her eyes. And she sees the world so differently than I do. And I believe that when we're making choices, that we not only need to see the world through our own eyes and ask what we think and how do we feel and what's our gut and our heart and our body say about this decision, and really dialing into that and paying attention. I think that's super critical. But I also think it's critical to see the world and to be able to see the world through other people's eyes. So as an example, like when we're making those types of decisions, we do need to consider the world from another perspective, because other people are typically involved in whatever it is we're going to do. I mean, if we're marketing to them, understanding your avatar, understanding marketing, understanding lead generation is about being able to see the world through somebody else's eyes. What problem did they have? Where are they in their mission? Being a great dad is about seeing your kids through the world of their eyes, right? So when I had this breakthrough, my son came down last night, real story. This happened 24 hours ago, less than 24 hours ago, came downstairs. Mom was singing to our 5-year-old, and my 10-year-old doesn't like her singing. He leaves the room, comes downstairs. I'm trying to watch TV, right? I'm trying to relax, decompress. He comes downstairs. Now he's interrupting my good time, right? And I'm kind of like, a little bit mad that he's interrupting my moment, right? My evening decompression. but I see the world through his eyes. He's just this kid. He's down there. I'm seeing like what he's seeing. He's seeing dad on the couch. He's seeing the show that dad's watching. I tried to completely see the world through his eyes. So I know I took a very roundabout way to get to the answer of your question, but here's what I think it is. When we are making decisions, we do need clarity. We need to have definition around what's important to us. What business do I want to build around the life that I want to have? But the element that we often forget when making decisions is to see the world through the lens of the people that matter in that project, right? So when we're in a marriage, it's our wives. When we're parenting, it's our kids. When we're in business and we're trying to market, it's to our client. When it's with our team, it's through their eyes when we're making decisions. So I just wanted to throw that element out there as potentially something different than what we normally talk about, which is when we're dealing with a coding online, when we're voicing our opinions, yeah, be clear, be bold, stand up for what you believe in, and never forget the importance of being able to see the world through other people's eyes. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I think all those comments are super timely. Tell me a little bit in our last, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes or so. What's your evolution been with Front Row Dads, right? If somebody out there trying to lead a community, or they want to get in touch with you and be a better, father who's also kind of like the world I live in, right? Running businesses or fully commissioned, like there's always an excuse to do more. And I always tell a lot of people that are in the loan officer world, the life insurance sales world, the real estate world, it's the only job in the world, sales, where you can make 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a month and feel like a complete failure, because you always know there was one more sale you could have done. There was one more call you could have made. There was one more system you could have refined. And I think that's the curse of a lot of the dads who's been attracted to your group. It's like, well, if you can always do more and more and more and more in business, but we don't define what we can do more and more and more in the dads group, it's our curse. So tell us a little bit about the evolution of Front Row Dads, where people can find you if they want more information, and what's the easiest way to get in touch.
Front Row Dads podcast, frontrowdads.com. Those are easy places to go to get more info. The evolution, here's what's really interesting. So coming into this entire, pandemic, COVID crisis, whatever we want to call it, this pattern interrupt for the world, coming into it, we had a live event that got postponed. We had a live retreat. So that was a big disruption to the group. We doubled down on conversations and calls within the group. We said, we're going to pour into the group. That was a change. That was an evolution. Here's another one. Our group used to be 5 pillars, right? And those pillars were, and I'm looking at them right now on my wall, right? Intentional parenting, integrated living, thriving relationships, emotional mastery, and vibrant health. Now, since COVID hit, we have evolved our pillars. Now we changed integrated living to be more of a direct, hey, that's a work-life balance. That's a business design category. We're business owners. We love our businesses. We thrive in and our businesses can serve our families. Our businesses can take away from our families, but they can also have a massive positive impact. So how do we design our business life so that it has the best impact on our family, right? All those conversations around business, that was an evolution. We added a category called wealth and legacy. Now, I never really wanted to talk about how to help a dad go from earning, whatever, 200,000 to 400,000 or $1 million to 2 million. I just wasn't really involved. I wasn't that excited about that conversation, because I don't think making an extra 100 grand or an extra million or whatever is going to make you that much better of a dad. Now, but the conversation around how does wealth impact our family? How do we teach our kids about wealth? What do we do with our wealth in the world? And however you define wealth, right? The wealth is that freedom to choose to do the things that you want to do in this life, and the legacy that you leave behind for your kids, because you can spoil your kids. You can hurt them with cash, right? This whole provide them with all the things you didn't have before. That I think kids should be hungry. I think kids need to learn how to be hungry. I think they need to learn how to want things, and not just always like, hey, we just order that on Amazon, it'll get here in 2 days. That's a dangerous place to be. And so I think that, evolving our pillars was a big part of what we wanted to do. And there's all these things that we started changing, defining, refining in our group that were awesome. that were all part of the process. Because, and part of why the business became more clear to us is guys were really concerned about their businesses. And we saw how that concern for their businesses was negatively impacting their family. So I was like, they're intertwined. We have to talk about this. So we started adding more business calls and more, more conversation that was relevant to our group. And we weren't afraid to pivot. We knew that conversation was key, especially right now, being in dialogue about difficult things. We had moved over to Mighty Networks, this offline platform, and then recognized that a lot of our guys were still craving a Facebook conversation. So we brought back the Facebook group, constant pivots, constant adjustments, constant evolution. And I think everybody's in that space. Not being afraid to move. I had to check my ego a bunch of times. I'm like, well, I said I was going to do this. And my ego was like, I just don't want to be wrong, or I don't want to, right? Versus like, hey, check my ego, do what's right for the community, do what's right in the moment, do what's right now.
Yeah, man. And it's one of the things I respect about you the most. And I think the world needs a lot more of is a little bit more of that humble self-reflection of like, I can be wrong. There's a lot of things right now that the libertarian in me, oh, there goes my internet connection. My internet connection craps out at least once a webinar. So there's too many people in our community using high-speed internet. But there's a lot of things in kind of my libertarian mindset. Yeah, it's fine. Just make everything in China. What do I care? I've had to reevaluate that. Like, oh no, the supply chain, actually affects the global health and our national health and what we can do in a crisis. And so, I've had to really rethink a lot of my political beliefs and kind of deeply held beliefs. And also something I've learned from you and the group, most importantly, when is the live event in Austin back on? Because I was really bummed out when that got canceled.
So we think it's going to be the July date. We actually just need to survey about 10 more guys, but I think we're going to dial in on July, and we're excited to get back together in person. Listen, I know this could be very controversial. I could spark a lot of really intense thoughts, but I believe that we need to get back to work. Believe we need to get our kids back into schools. I think that we need to get healthy people back in motion, and COVID is here. Corona is here. It's going to be here. I believe that we need to protect people that are at risk. And I think that's a smart move, but I think other people need to be moving back into gear in some very unique ways, some safe ways. I mean, obviously with thought, but we need to be moving back to that direction. So we're going to be doing that as a community. We're getting back to our event with Front Row Dads.
Awesome, man. And then just because, I've seen this evolution over the last 7 years, I will ask you the last question. What's next for Jon Vroman, personally, professionally, new project? Anything fun you want to talk about?
Dude, it's actually what's not for Jon Vroman, because I've had my hand in a lot of different things, and now I'm just completely all in on Front Row Dads. I talked with a recruiter this morning to hire an executive director for Front Row Foundation so that I can redirect, my focus to Front Row Dads, and we're just going all in on this group. The podcast is growing like crazy. The community is growing. And if somebody's out there and they're a dad, we want to talk with you. We want, this is, Scott, I want to fight against. And I think this is a very important piece to where dads find themselves right now in close proximity to their families a lot, is that we have in some ways adopted this culture of a dad being the dude who goes to work and makes the money. But then when it comes to family life, like they're just the bumbling idiot. They don't know how to change a diaper. They don't know how to cook a dinner. They don't know how to do any of those things, as if somehow those things make you not as manly. Like, dude, I want guys to be true warriors if that's what's in their heart. I want them to go out and be aggressive and competitive and fight and I want all that, right? I don't want guys to, I don't want the world to see men in a particular way that doesn't empower the men to be ballers. I want people to wear a hat like the one you're wearing right now. There's a guy who I massively respect. You, by the way, I may have heard this story, but he's a pretty influential writer, and he put something out there like, I went to get a haircut and the woman was like, do you want a dad haircut or something like that? But his comment was the one that stoked a fire in me. And it was like, let's all agree that whenever you add the word dad to something, you don't make it cool, or you don't make it any cooler. And I'm like, that's messed up. Like that's messed up, that come to the conclusion that there's a dad bod or a dad whatever, right? Like there's like this not cool factor about being a dad. And I want to fight against that. I want to rebel against that. I want to bring back this, like when somebody's a dad, that, I mean, honestly, great. I want you to build an epic business. All that's wonderful. I don't want you to not do that. I don't want you to just stay at home with the kids 24/7. I don't think that's the answer either. But I think that it's to bring back an empowering meaning to what it means to be a true leader at home, to be a father, that this microcosm of a bigger picture, this what happens in our home happens in the world, right? So we want to do big things in the world. We have to do big things at home, because all big things in the world for future generations happens when men step up for their families, when they lead their kids, when they give them the best model and best example and best values. You want to really be political? Be political at home by doing the shit that you want to happen in the world with your kids, to create an environment that empowers them, because that's the billions of people that in 3 generations or 3 decades are going to be leading all the companies and running the governments. So if dads can be empowered to take their kids and help them and guide them and shepherd them, that to me is the answer.
Dude, that's the way you end an interview, man. I love you lots for being on. And, maybe in a couple weeks when we get